My understanding, Deshaun Watson is going to be reinstated from his 11-game suspension. That's today. Now for Watson, what this means is he can play. Watson had been serving the 11-game suspension for multiple violations of the NFL personnel conduct policy.
A nearly 2-year-long saga is officially over, and there's a lot of answers that we're about to get as a result of Deshaun Watson finally returning to the NFL. And there is some controversy as a result of it as well. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. If you happen to be into Prize Picks, which has been my new addiction recently, make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok because I make my picks over there and post them onto my story. And you can sign up and get up to $100 in a deposit match when you use my link in the description down below. Now that we get all of that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? For the New York Jets fans that consume my content, just a brief memo. I've been compiling a lot of data on the Mike White and Zach Wilson situation, which is why I haven't released my video on that yet. It's coming, don't worry, I promise you. But the Deshaun Watson situation has been one of the most unique situations we've had in quite some time. I mean, this was a roller coaster from the very beginning when Deshaun Watson demanded a trade from the Houston Texans after one of his best statistical seasons of his career. Shortly after this, the original reports of multiple accusers of Deshaun Watson for conduct came out. And to be honest, in the beginning, I actually thought the two were linked. Little did I know how far this case would go. We were in for one roller coaster of a ride. I mean, Deshaun Watson didn't play football for an entire season as a result of this. In the offseason, he would inevitably get traded to a team that he didn't want to go to because that team was willing to pay him a fully guaranteed $240 million contract. A contract that is so crazy that no other NFL team was willing to give it to any other QB. Not the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, not Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. Yeah, Broncos fans, it could have been way worse. And you should be thankful that it wasn't. Following that move, arbitration happened, and that was a whole other situation. First, there was Judge Sue L. Robinson that gave Deshaun Watson a much shorter suspension based upon the NFL's history of ruling on these types of cases in the past, which I don't think got blown up as much as it should have because Judge Sue L. Robinson essentially said, historically, in the past, if a crime of this magnitude occurred, Deshaun Watson should only be suspended for 6 games. The NFL would appeal this, there'd be a brand new arbitration that would proceed, and eventually Deshaun Watson would get suspended for 11 games. And I've said this in the past, this really screws over the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson's cap hit balloons significantly next year. This year, they could put a super team around him. This year, they could afford the likes of Amari Cooper and Jadeveon Clowney being on the team. Hell, you even had Jadeveon Clowney claiming that the reason he came to the Browns was because of Deshaun Watson.
I was all about where my boy Deshaun was going. When I talked to him, I played with him, and he kept us off the field a lot. And I was like, wherever you go, I know you're going to keep us off the field. You put up a lot of points, put us in rush and rushing situations instead of having to stop the run all the time. And I just wanted to go play with him and see what I can do with him.
And honestly, the Browns put a hell of a team around Watson. They still have the dynamic duo of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They still have a fairly solid offense. And now they even have Deshaun Watson rejoining them. But will this be enough? Well, according to Ian Rappaport, I think it's important that we note that Deshaun Watson has officially been reinstated into the NFL. Rap Sheet had this to say: Deshaun Watson's reinstatement will become official this afternoon on the league personnel notice. He has been permitted to participate in all team activities since November 14th and may continue to do so. That last line before we continue is very significant because Deshaun Watson would have been like a headless chicken on the Cleveland Browns if he just got to return to practice the same week that he was allowed to play when he returns against the Houston Texans, which, by the way, NFL, oddly convenient that you allowed Deshaun Watson to return right as he's facing his old team. The NFL never ceases to miss a bag. People think that they didn't plan this on purpose. I really think that if this game happened to be next week, Deshaun Watson would have had a 12-game suspension. And if this game was a week earlier, Deshaun Watson would have had a 10-game suspension. That's my belief. There's no way we can prove who's right and wrong, but I genuinely believe that's why Deshaun Watson's returning this week. The NFL cannot miss this bag. So Watson being able to return on November 14th was crucial. He gets to practice with the team, and hopefully he'll be a little bit more acclimated to the NFL. Bear in mind, this is a guy that hasn't played football in a year and a half. Ian Rappaport continues to say that after an 11-game suspension for violations of the NFL's personal conduct policy, Browns QB Deshaun Watson has compiled with all the terms and is now officially back and active. He'll be Cleveland's starting QB. No quarterback controversy here. Jacoby Brissett is not going to really compete with Deshaun Watson. This is what the Cleveland Browns were officially waiting for. Unfortunately for Josh Dobbs, he'll get released as a result of this. Now, this is all information I'm sure you knew. Maybe not the Josh Dobbs bit, but this next piece of information is really interesting, and we'll get to it in a sec. First, we need to evaluate where the Cleveland Browns stand. It's not as bad as you think it is, but it's not necessarily really great either. The Cleveland Browns are currently tied for last place in their division with a 4-7 record. And this includes some heartbreakers, man. I mean, I keep thinking back to that New York Jets game where Joe Flacco led one of the most unlikely comebacks I think I've ever seen earlier on in the season. The Browns have 4 wins and 7 losses, but they're technically just 3 games behind first place in the AFC North. And when you look at this team's remaining schedule, it seems like there's actually hope for them. I said this in the beginning of the year. In an ideal world, the Cleveland Browns would have won something like 6 games or 7 games. I said that at the beginning of the season. But now that that isn't the case, the Browns need to do whatever they possibly can to win out for the rest of the season. And I feel like if they are able to achieve this, on top of the fact that they need the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals to lose some games, which could totally happen, you might see the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs. This is who they have to face off next. Obviously, there's the Browns versus the Texans. Then they have an interdivisional matchup versus the Bengals, which are tied for first place at the time that we're recording this video. And they face off against the Baltimore Ravens on December 18th, another huge interdivisional matchup versus the team that is trying to vie for first place. The Saints should be a layup, the Commanders should be a layup, and hopefully the Steelers are a layup the week after. I just think this is such a unique situation. You get your starting QB that you decided to pay a copious sum of money for. I mean, one of the most bizarre contracts I've ever seen, but you only get him for 6 games. I mean, Deshaun Watson has 6 games to come back, play football for the first time in a year and a half in a brand new system that he's not used to, with brand new teammates that he needs to build chemistry with. This is week 1 for Deshaun Watson, and the NFL is currently in week 13. So it's an absolutely bizarre situation, but it gets even more bizarre. You know those women who settled lawsuits versus Deshaun Watson? Well, they're actually going to be attending this game. And you might be thinking, Mike, that's not that big of a deal. But if you remember, in Deshaun Watson's preseason games, he played horrifically, and this is with the Jacksonville Jaguars fan base heckling him throughout the game, reminding him of his situation. And that's the Jacksonville Jaguars in preseason. Deshaun Watson is about to face off against the Houston Texans on the road. I mean, this team is rebuilding 100% because of him. Well, because of Bill O'Brien as well. But could you just imagine that for a sec? So if a bunch of Jacksonville Jaguars fans are chanting, "You sick a bunch of times at Watson, and he is performing horrifically, and I have no way to prove to you guys this is 100% the reason why Deshaun Watson had a crappy preseason. I'm assuming it is, but I have no way of proving it. Can you just imagine how Deshaun Watson's going to feel when he returns to the Houston Texans in his first game for the Cleveland Browns, in a game that's very important, by the way, on the road? So they are playing at NRG Stadium with women who he settled lawsuits with. Can you just imagine the atmosphere? And get this, I mean, I think this part's comical. Tony Busby said about 10 of the women who accused Watson of sexual harassment and assault during massages are planning to attend Sunday's game at Houston's NRG Stadium, where the Browns will take on the Texans and watch him play in his return from an 11-game suspension. Look at what Busby says here, man. Some of my clients asked to go. They thought it was important to make clear that they are still here and that they matter. Some of the women really want to attend the game to kind of make the statement, hey, we're still here, we matter, our voice will was heard, and this is not something that's over. Sexual harassment and assault happen every day in the United States, Tony Busby said on Tuesday. The women declined to comment ahead of this upcoming game. And by the way, I don't think SA is funny at all. I just think it's funny that recently I've been covering a lot of these cases, and Tony Busby is everywhere, bro. I mean, the Alvin Kamara case, this case obviously is the first time I heard of him. Even in the NBA, he covered the Josh Primo case that my evil twin brother, the Flight Mike, covered. So this is going to be one hell of an atmosphere, and the Houston Texans have only won one game this year. They're going to have one hell of a 12th man. It's going to be so interesting to watch this game, and I honestly don't know how to predict it. I can see Deshaun Watson coming in front of us.
What did he say?
I can see Deshaun Watson coming in front of us and slinging the rock like it's no problem like he used to for the Texans, but I could obviously see him being very rattled. It's his first game against his former team with his accusers in the crowd against a fan base that is probably going to boo the living out of him. Let me know in the comment section down below how you think it's gonna go. Deshaun Watson's officially back, and do you think the Cleveland Browns could sneak into the playoffs? I mean, they definitely need some things to turn their way, but I feel like if they win out for the rest of the season, wild card berth is definitely plausible. They have to win out for the rest of the season. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.